Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba from Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the resident legal diva, coming to you with another Mondays with Melba. And we're going to be chatting about all things Diddy yet again. So, quick refresher for those who don't know, earlier this year, Cassie Ventura, who is a hip hop and R&B artist, filed a lawsuit against P. Diddy alleging sexual assault, domestic violence, and just varying horrific things that she endured in her relationship with him when she was dating him and he was also her producer. This was a bombshell set of allegations. It was just, I mean, if you want to just be completely miserable, read the pleadings. I read them so you don't have to, but it's very just demeaning and horrifying, the things that she through and the things she said he did to her. So she files this lawsuit and he literally settles it within one day. She was able to file this lawsuit under what was called the Adult Survivors Act, which was a limited law that was passed in New York, in the state of New York, that basically extended the statute of limitations for people who endured sexual abuse in the past. So you think about all of these cases with like Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, all of that stuff that occurred years ago, like 10, 15 years ago. It gave this limited window for survivors who are like, you know what, I'm in a better place right now. I have, more financial resources, whatever the case may be. It allows them to go back and sue in civil court, not criminal, but civil court, for damages for the harm that was done to them. So this was a limited situation, and that's why Cassie ended up filing when she did. And so literally she dropped that lawsuit and the same day Diddy settled it, which told me right off the rip that what she said in that pleading in that lawsuit was true. So this happens. Then fast forward, Little Rod, who was a producer, worked with Bad Boy Entertainment, had a close relationship from a business perspective with Diddy. He drops a lawsuit that basically backs up everything that Cassie said, and then went a step further, talking about how Diddy had all of these horrible parties, and sex workers were brought to the party and were treated horribly, to the point where people were literally being dangled off of balconies, just like complete insanity, right? And really just gave more context to the depravity that was basically going on in Diddy's world, whether it be at his house at Star Island in Florida, in South Beach, or whether it be in a hotel room somewhere. That madness and horror just followed him everywhere he went. So he added more context to what Cassie was saying, which again was a whole nother level of just like bombshell allegations, right? Because again, unlike R. Kelly and other artists, we had heard little murmurings, along the way that, oh, something inappropriate may be going on. In the case of Diddy, we didn't really have that, right? Like, other than the gun case with him and J-Lo back when they were dating, that was about it. It wasn't like you were hearing a whole bunch of shade going on about him. So you have Cassie's lawsuit, which broke the dam. Then you had Little Rod's lawsuit that came about 3, 4 months later. The feds, Homeland Security, other agencies did a raid on Diddy's house in Star Island, and they searched, took a bunch of stuff. We don't know what all was taken and all that, because the investigation is continuing, right? They're trying to figure out if they have enough for a criminal case against him, not having to do with Cassie, because what happened with Cassie was back, early, mid 2000s. Again, statute of limitations. You have a certain amount of time in order to file a lawsuit or to bring charges against someone, except for when there's a homicide. A homicide is not being alleged here. So again, statute of limitations applies. Again, depending on the charge, it could be anywhere from 3 years to 5 years to 6 years. But no matter how you cut it, there's no criminal angle for Cassie to be able to get accountability from Diddy. So there's that. So now we have Cassie's lawsuit, we have Little Rod's lawsuit, and then we have the arrest of Brandon Paul, who was alleged in Little Rod's lawsuit to be the drug mule for Diddy. So all of these parties that Diddy was having were super drug fueled, lots of cocaine. Just, I mean, apparently there was an allegation about pink cocaine. I mean, there's all kinds of weirdness going on, right? So so this guy, Brandon Paul, gets caught at the Opelika Airport, which is a private airport in Miami. So he basically got caught up in the raids around Diddy's house because they did the raid not only in his house at Star Island and South Beach, but also other properties of his as well. So it was one of those concerted efforts where they hit a bunch of places at the same time. And Brandon Paul got caught up in the middle of that. He was found with cocaine on him. So then he was charged with possession of cocaine. His case now is in what's called diversion, which basically means if you stay out of trouble, if you go to a course or pay a fine, it could be any of a number of things. But if you fulfill the requirements of diversion, then the case is dropped against you. Now, diversion is not usually something that's given in exchange for testimony. So if folks are wondering, hey, did Brendan Paul have to flip or snitch in order to get this deal? I would say likely not. Because again, diversion is not necessarily something that comes as part of a plea deal around getting testimony. It's usually like you don't have a criminal history, it's a low level amount of drugs. Here's a way to keep this person out of the criminal justice system. They're being held accountable because they have to do community service or whatever the case may be. But the case gets dismissed against them so that they can move on with their lives and be able to apply for jobs or get housing or whatever the case may be. So I don't think he snitched in order to get that deal, right? Now, fast forward even further to last week when now somebody had the receipts. So Cassie describes in her lawsuit a horrible incident that happened in 2016, one of many, where Diddy was abusive towards her, beat her, kicked her, dragged her, threw things at her, the whole works, right? She said in her pleadings, and Little Rod backed this up, that when he would get violent, he would then pay his security to go and basically retrieve any surveillance footage that showed that he had been violent or he had done something that was wrong or inappropriate. And so he was under the belief, clearly, that he had gotten all of his receipts, right? That he had gotten all the footage, that no one can ever really substantiate what happened. Well, turns out either his people didn't do a good job or somebody kept a video as insurance. And we saw the video surveillance of a horrible interaction between him and Cassie, where, just like she said in the pleadings, he was beating her, he was kicking her, etc. Now, I watched it so you don't have to. But I will say, if you choose to watch it, trigger warning, because it is very, 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 very disturbing. So this comes out, right? Again, I knew from right off the rip that what Cassie said was true because of the fact he settled so quickly. This entire time, Diddy and his attorney kept going around and saying, oh, well, this is just an attempt for people to get paid. This is all a lie. I would never do something like that. Well, now we got you on camera. So you still going to sit there and say it wasn't me? Huh. Well, that's exactly what he had to move away from. And he ended up making a video and apologizing and saying he was in a dark place and he's so sorry and this and that. Sir, first of all, the person you need to be apologizing is not us, it's her. She's the one you brutalized. You need to apologize to all the people who said you brutalized him because she's not the only one, okay? And the reality is, this was just an attempt to save himself. Because again, he's caught on camera in all his glory, acting like a damn abusive fool, okay? And his career's over. His career's over. No one's going to want to touch him with a 10-foot pole. So the apology to me is too little, too late. You played too much, you talked a bunch of smack, and you know what? Somebody had the receipts. So there you have it. Now, will he face criminal charges for what he did to Cassie? No. Like I said before, statute of limitations. This happened in 2016. We're looking at 8 years later. That's too long a period of time, right? But from a civil perspective, again, he faced that accountability when she filed that lawsuit, and he settled with her for an undisclosed amount. Since then, multiple women have come forward alleging sexual assault, sexual abuse, all kinds of abuse at Diddy's hands. So the good thing is that it empowered more people to come forward and talk about their horrible experience with him. And maybe there may be a case that happened more recently, let's say in the last 2 to 4 years, that maybe criminal charges can happen. But if we don't have something in the last couple of years, criminal charges are not going to happen. It's only going to be about that civil liability where he's going to have to pay out money for the damages and the harm that he's done to others. Now, let's keep in mind, the feds are still investigating. So they may find evidence of something else, whether it's drugs, whether it's, human trafficking, because if he's moving, people around for the purposes of, having sex, that's a crime. And again, that type of crime has a little bit longer statute of limitations. So again, if the feds can come through with this, we will see charges filed and it will be very ugly for him. Now, I think that the charges are not going to happen anytime soon because the feds are really intense. They're very thorough. They don't like to move on a case unless there's audio surveillance, video surveillance, and clear. Not murky, cloudy, grainy gas station video. Like, it has to be high quality. So when they move, that's why they have like a ridiculous 98% conviction rate, because they don't move unless their cases are rock solid. So they're not going to move on him until they have all of their ducks in a row and all of the evidence to be able to assure that he's going to be convicted. So there's going to be two different paths of things happening. The federal investigation is going to continue, and we'll see if charges come from that. And then on the civil side, you have multiple lawsuits pending, multiple people coming forward saying that he's harmed them. And so now those cases are going to have to work their way through the system. And that's probably going to start to come to a head in the next year to 2 years. Because again, a lot of things have to happen behind the scenes in a civil case. There's what's called depositions, where basically both sides get to interview potential witnesses that are going to be called to the stand to understand what they're going to testify to, right? There's other types of investigation that happens in a civil case in preparation for an actual trial. So all of that stuff is going to continue. So that's why I don't think these cases are going to be resolved anytime soon. Anyway, that's the deal with Diddy for now. My heart and my mind and my thoughts are all with Cassie, first of all, who has to relive this nightmare again, right? I mean, who wants a video of one of the worst times in their lives being out there for everyone to see? So my heart goes out to her completely, because I can't even imagine the pain she's struggling with right now. And to the other people that were victimized by him, because even though their ordeal is not necessarily out there for public consumption, by them seeing what Cassie went through, that's going to trigger something with them as well. So my heart goes out to them. And again, folks, if you're struggling with domestic violence, if somebody in your orbit is struggling with domestic violence, there is help available. I'm dropping resources in the comments. If you're watching this on TikTok, I'm going to tag some resources, but just make sure not to suffer in silence, because there are resources out there. There are people that will help you and can help you. So please reach out and get that help. All right, y'all. Take good care.
All right.